morning, everybody. We will call the meeting of the Board of Public Works and Safety to order for today, Monday, May 6th. First item on our agenda is approval of the minutes for the regular meeting on April 15th, our special meeting on April 16th, and our special meeting on April 22nd.
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes for the regular meeting of April 15th, the special meeting of April 16th, and the special meeting of April 22nd.
Motion on the floor and a second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. Next item on our agenda is request for sidewalk closure by Abdul Ibrahim, All Brick LLC. Good morning, sir.
Morning. My name is Abdul Ibrahim, 227 West A Street. I'm requesting an extension for sidewalk and city parking closure on the south side of Harrison Street on the corner of Harrison and Franklin for construction project.
Thank you. Do we have any comments from city departments on the request?
Spike Feller, Michigan City Engineer. I'm just reiterating that must make arrangements to for ADA compliance for this.
Okay.
The thing that needs to be on ADA compliance, I believe, is the sidewalks, and I do have a commitment from the mayor to be put on the 2019 sidewalk budget. So I'm hoping that'll get addressed.
Okay. Any other comments by any other city departments? Have any comments from the board?
No.
Do I have a motion?
Make a motion to approve the request for sidewalk closure for the restaurant Leo located at 2701 Franklin Street from May 6, 2019 through June 6, 2019.
Motion on the floor and a second. All in favor? Aye. Approved.
Thank you.
Thank you and good luck to you. Next motion. The next item on our agenda is request for sidewalk closure and table space rentals by John Riska, the Rising Phoenix Gallery. Good morning.
Good morning. My name is John Riska from the Rising Phoenix Gallery at 2803 Franklin Street. I'm requesting the approval for us to be able to put on a Sunday sidewalk sale. I'm looking to generate further arts outlet for the Michigan City community. I'm part of the Michigan City Art Council, and I'm looking to just further the arts and provide another outlet.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Spike Feller, Michigan City Engineer. Just reiterate that this must be ADA compliant. You know, in other words, the wheelchair can get through.
I will admit my ignorance at this moment and work with the city to further understand the guidelines and make any appropriate needs addressed.
Okay, thanks. I appreciate that. Comments from other city departments?
I have a question. Do you have a map or a layout of what this would look like, and have you gone over it with the planning department or anybody to make sure that they're in agreement with us?
I have not. This is my first step, and I'm willing to take baby steps to make this happen eventually. So I'm happy to address any of those issues at this point.
Just make sure that there's 4 feet width in order for a wheelchair to pass through.
Yeah. That should not be a problem from the measurements that I've taken. It looks like we've got at least 6 feet.
Good morning, board.
Good morning.
John, just make sure you got 6 or 4 feet between, like the edge of the table and the back of the not the sidewalk, but the back of the curb. So there's another 6 inches. Just make sure if you have to get smaller tables or something like that, just make sure you got plenty of space to get around that, so a wheelchair could go around.
Okay.
That's essentially what he's looking for.
Just for my clarification, when you say the back of the curb, does that mean
Correct.
the immediate street side edge, or does that include the 6 inches-ish of...
So the 6 inches back of the curb.
Okay.
Okay.
Gotcha.
Just make sure you got enough space that you don't want them slipping off the edge. Give them an
Hey,
extra little
Skylar,
bit of space.
can I make a recommendation?
Yeah.
Can you please do I would recommend maybe tabling this. You could do a layout of what it's going to look like so the departments, because you're asking for an extended period of time. This isn't like a one weekend incident. you can make a layout and make sure that layout is approved by this board.
Yeah.
That would be my recommendation.
Yeah, if you could do that, John, we'll get it. But that's the dimensions.
Yeah.
Okay.
That works.
Do I have a motion?
Yes, I'll make a motion to table this matter.
There's a motion on the floor to table this while the applicant prepares a layout and submits it for review by the city. And there's a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
You
Motion
want this on the
carries.
pending list?
Thank you for your time.
Thank you very much.
Pending?
You want it on the pending? Yes.
Mhm.
Next item on the agenda is a request for parade permit and street closure by Bob Hock. Is there anyone here to speak to this morning?
Good morning, Captain Jeff Lineski, Traffic Division. This is the same route as we usually have for the Memorial Day Parade. We've never experienced any problems with it, and we would recommend approval.
Thank you. Comments from the board? Do I have a motion?
Make a motion to approve the request for a parade permit and street closure on May 27th from 9 a.m. to 11:30 p.m. and that would be the street closure from Franklin to Decatur Street, then east on Decatur to Greenwood Cemetery for the annual Memorial Day Observance Parade.
Motion on the floor and a second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. Next item is a request for street closure by Kim Gondek of Queen of All Saints. Good morning.
I'm standing in for Kim Gondek. She would like to request that the section of Barker from Woodland to Carroll is closed for the duration of the, not the duration.
Sorry, can you just step up to the microphone so we can hear you? Thank you.
I'm here for Kim Gondek, and we would like to request that the section of Barker from Woodland to Carroll is closed for the duration of the Queen of All Saints Festival while it's in session. So the hours of the festival, so June 6th through the 9th.
Thank you. Comments?
Yes, again, this is an annual request. Nothing's changed from last year, and we would recommend approval.
Thank you. Comments from the board?
No.
Do I have a motion?
Make a motion to approve the request for street closure for the Queen of All Saints Festival. Close Barker Avenue from Woodland to Carroll Avenue, June 6th through 9th. That would be Thursday from 5 to 10 p.m., Friday from 5 to 12 a.m., Saturday from 1 to 12 a.m., and Sunday from 1 to 10 p.m.
Thank you. A motion on the floor and a second. All in favor say aye. Motion carries. Thank you. Next item on our agenda is a request for street closure by Abby May of Main Street Association. Good morning.
Good morning, how are you?
Doing great. How are you?
Good. This request is for Taste of Michigan City. I'm Abby May. Our request is for Taste of Michigan City to shut down Franklin from 6th to 8th and 7th from Washington to Pine on August 2nd through the 4th. And we understand that that would be pending our insurance. And I've spoken to Officer Lineski, and it's just business as usual.
Thank you.
Anything else?
Comments, same as last year? Yeah. Comments from the board?
No.
Do I have a motion?
Yes, I'll make a motion to approve the request for street closure for Franklin Street from 6th to south to 8th Street and 7th Street between Washington and Pine on August 2nd through 4th for the Taste of Michigan City. Also the closure of Washington Street from US Highway 12 to 10th Street and Franklin Street from 10th to 4th Street for the boat parade on Saturday, August 3rd.
Thank you.
Motion on the floor and a second. All in favor say aye. Motion carries.
Great,
Thank you.
thanks.
Next item on our agenda is request to use Westcott Park by Abby May of the Michigan City Main Street Association.
So Michigan City Main Street Association is for the first time partnering with other local agencies to create an event. This is the South Shore Mini Maker Fair. Our partnership is with a group called the South Shore Makers, which is comprised of representatives from Michigan City area schools, Safe Harbor, the EDC, the Chamber, LaPorte County Library, Michigan City Library. The Maker Fair is an international brand and event that looks different in every community, but the idea is to bring makers of all kinds together to show, sell, and demonstrate their craft. So it's more than a craft fair, more than a STEM fair, more than an art fair, but everything together. It's often referred to as the greatest show and tell on earth, and we're excited to be able to utilize Westcott Park more, and I think this would be a great opportunity for that. So our request is to use the park from June 21st to June 23rd, and the insurance will be handled by Main Street Association, naming Main Street and the city, obviously.
Thank you. Comments by city departments on the request?
We spoke to Officer Lineski. We are not selling booze at this event. It's just from 11 to 5, so we don't need the same security that we need for events like the Taste, but they've agreed that they would be aware of the event and put us on our route and be available if anything would come up that we would need.
Comments by the board?
Nothing.
Do I have a motion?
Make a motion to approve the request to use Westcott Park for the Mini Maker Fair from on Friday, June 21st through Sunday, June 23rd, that being the 21st setup, the 22nd the fair, and the 23rd breakdown.
Motion on the floor and a second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Motion carries.
Thank you.
Good luck. Next item on our agenda is a request for bike lane by Councilman Johnny Stimley, requesting a painted bike lane from US Highway 12 to Springland Avenue on Carwick Road.
Mike Pellet, Michigan City Engineer. This will be on the epoxy painting contract, so it'll be taken care of.
Thank you. And you don't have any concerns with the request? It's appropriate and it works?
Yes, last year when we paved the street, we kind of ran out of money and we canceled the painting contract, and this year we'll do it.
Okay. I don't, at this point, I don't believe there's anything that we need to approve, so
No, there
proceed with the request. Thank you. Next item on our agenda is a request for horizontal drilling permit by Kevin Maxwell, BSM Group's Intelligent Fiber Network, requesting horizontal directional drilling for placement of underground fiber optic cable. Is there anyone here to speak to this request this morning? This was tabled from our April 1st meeting, according to our notes here.
Spike Pellet, Michigan City Engineer. I've reviewed it. Attorney Page has reviewed it, and I think everything is okay.
Comments?
It was tabled at the last meeting because there was concern that the right forms weren't submitted, and I
Okay.
believe the right forms have been submitted. I think the only letter we're missing from the respective departments reviewing this is planning. Is that right, Ms. Nyla? I don't know if planning's here and wants to speak on this or doesn't have any objection. That's okay. The horizontal directional drill for Kevin Maxwell, BSM Group, Intelligent Fiber Network. Planning never submitted a letter of whether or not they disagree or agree. Okay.
Comments by the board?
Nothing.
A motion?
So I make a motion to approve the request for horizontal drilling from BSM Group, Intelligent Fiber Network, horizontal drilling to take place on E Street and Trail Creek Greenway, and it is subject to the provisions in the 32519 letter from Sanitary District.
Motion on the floor and a second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. Next item is a horizontal drilling permit request by Diane Warner, OSP Engineering Design, Construction and Engineering, requesting a permit to directional bore and place approximately 210 feet of fiber. The project location is Davidson Street and Del Plaine Avenue. Anyone here to speak to this?
Spike Peller, Michigan City Engineer. I believe I've reviewed it. I think attorneys reviewed it. The clerks reviewed it. And I think everything is okay.
Madam Clerk, were there any letters missing from departments?
Just a few, fire department, port authority, and transit, but I don't believe they had anything to do with this.
Comments by the board? Do I have a motion?
Make a motion to approve the request for horizontal drilling from OSP Engineering Design, Construction and Engineering for placement of a 210-foot fiber and IPP projection. Location is Davidson Street and Del Plaine Avenue.
Motion on the floor and a second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. Next item is a horizontal drilling permit request. Olivia Carlin, ESPO Engineering.
Spike Peller, Michigan City Engineer. I've reviewed it. I believe council has reviewed it. I don't know if there's any departments that haven't sent in their letters, but I believe it's okay.
There are a few, inspection and planning department, fire department, and transit, which I don't believe they have anything to do with this matter as it is.
Comments by the board?
No.
And I believe sanitary district did have some comments in their letter. Essentially, I mean, they agreed to allow the permit to go through, but with some conditions.
Thank you. Do I have a motion?
Make a motion to approve the request for horizontal drilling from ESPO Engineering, the installation and bore of an underground CIT be underneath Woodland Avenue. The location is 1607 Cool Spring Avenue, South Woodland to 947 South Woodland, and that's subject to the conditions as articulated in the letter from Sanitary District.
Motion on the floor and a second. All in favor say aye. Motion carries. Next item on our agenda is a request for signage by James Tomczyk, St. Paul Lutheran School, requesting a school zone speed limit sign 15 miles an hour when children are present, posted for child safety on Pine Street.
Spike Peller, Michigan City Engineer. I will investigate this and get back to you at the next board meeting.
Thank you, Spike. We have a motion to refer this to engineering.
Yes. I'll make a motion to refer the matter of the St. Paul Lutheran's request for a school zone speed limit, 15 mile an hour speed limit when children are present on Pine Street. I will refer this to engineering department and also table this for the pending items.
Motion on the floor and a second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. Next item on our agenda is a request for street closure by Janet Block, Executive Director for the Lubeznik Center for the Arts.
Good morning,
morning.
everyone. How are you?
Great. How are you?
Janet Block, and I'm asking for an annual event as well. The street closures are the same that I requested last year, and I've submitted the map, spoken with the city planner, assistant city planner, and with Jeff Lineski from traffic. We will have emergency management man some of the areas where the street closures are.
Thank you. Comments by city departments? Same as last year. Comments by the board?
None.
Do I have a motion?
I'll make a motion to approve the request for street closure for the Jack and Shirley Lubeznik Center for the Arts. The closure of Washington Street north of US Highway 12, Franklin Street from the crosswalk at Water Street to 2nd Street for the annual Lubeznik Art and Artisan Festival, the weekend of August 16 through 19, between the hours of 9 a.m. and 5 p.m.
Motion on the floor and a second. All in favor say aye. Motion carries.
Okay, just so you know, it was actually 8 until 7 on Sunday. I just want to make that note because we do need the artists to be able to unload on Sunday night. Thank you.
Thank you. Next item on our agenda is a request to hang banners by Ryan Laughlin, Board Director, Michigan City Main Street Association. Good morning.
Good morning. I'm Abby May. I'll speak for Ryan Laughlin on behalf of Main Street Association. This is a new project. We would like to be able to hang banners featuring work by local artists brought in by an open call for art on the open light poles in the Uptown Arts District. So right now we have some of the poles filled with the UAD banners, and we would like to be able to utilize the poles that don't currently have any signage on them. Obviously with the same process used for UAD banners, but knowing that we would have to, that this is our project and that we'll look into cost of doing that, of the installation.
Thank you. Comments by city departments on the request? Essentially, this is an expansion of the existing banner concept.
Yes, but instead of just having the UAD logo, the goal would be to accept art from local artists of all ages and turn that into banner format to create a more vibrant and inclusive artistic environment in the UAD.
This is just a thought that I've had. Have you thought about like maybe getting a plan together about what light posts, what the artwork's going to look, what the design shape is going to be, and maybe running that by the city engineer and planning?
Yeah, so the hurdle we came across was we didn't want to put out the call for art, have artists create these pieces, submit them, and then go through the process of getting approval to use the poles at the risk of asking people to put their energy into something and then finding out you can't use the poles at all. We would be able to, once the call for art has completed and we have reviewed the submissions and selected the ones that we would like to use, obviously just within a number that's within our budget, how many we could choose. If we were in the fortunate position to get a lot of submissions, then we would be happy to work with city planning on which light poles would be best at that time.
Or maybe just having guidelines as to what shape, colors.
Yes, so we have written the artist guidelines. It does cover any, nothing obscene, nothing that promotes hate, nothing that uses proper names or promotes a business, making sure that we keep within those guidelines.
Could you submit those guidelines so the city departments could review them?
Sure. Could we approve the use of the light poles contingent on review of those so that we would be able to get the call to artists out? Our hope is that we would be able to have these up by taste.
Could you also get a list of the light poles?
Yeah. So again, if we had 100 people submit versus 20 people submit, our exact request would vary. Obviously, our first points of target would be that, Franklin and the roads that go parallel, and then based on submissions that we receive and our ability to fund the project further through expansion, we would be able to expand from there.
I was just hoping to have some input from, I don't want to get them up and then have the city go, oh, the design, the shape, or something isn't
Absolutely.
appropriate.
If we could just approve the use of the poles, then we would be happy to work with everybody to make sure that it is in line with the aesthetic and function.
Let's see if I can clarify something. I think that if we're using city property, I agree. I understand what you're getting at. I think that's the point of the MAC, the MAC board, is to control. If it's viewed from a city public right of way or on public property, that's the appropriate. I think that's the appropriate body that should give its blessing or something like that, if you will, or review. I don't.
Of the art itself, or the ability to use the poles?
Art itself, but also.
You mean the Main Street Association board, right?
The MAC.
Public Art Committee.
Public Art Committee.
Okay.
Because it's viewed from the public, so you probably want them to have some say in what's up there, what's appropriate, or I don't know. That's the whole point of that board.
I'd be happy to I'd be happy to take that thought back to our board to look at
Really great ideas.
having representation from, I don't think that we would want to give up our ability to have our say in which art was selected, but I'm sure that we would love to have that be a collaboration between MAC and Main Street. But as of today, our request is just, if this project could go forward, could we use the light poles?
I honestly don't think we have an issue with using the light poles. There's plenty of vacant poles down there, to be honest. There's a couple of vacant poles without banners, and they all have banner hangers on them. So
Okay, so it appears that we don't have a problem using the light poles. Also, the Public Art Committee, MAC, was set up with a public art master plan that seems very appropriate to be the mechanism to review that this is in the vision of our public art concept. So what if we approve the use of the light poles contingent upon you submitting your concept to the Public Art Committee?
Sure.
What-
Yes.
I'll second
that'd be
that
great.
motion.
We have a motion on the floor and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Motion carries.
Thank you.
Thank you. Next item on our agenda is an approval for additional employees by Ron Landtroop, A Slice of Heaven, requesting approval to hire additional employees on his vendor license. Good morning.
Morning.
So you've been here before to make a request. This is similar. You're requesting additional employees for your vendor's license.
Yeah, I just need
Everything is in order, Mr.
Okay.
new
President.
people for summer help,
Thank you.
basically.
Comments by the board? Do I have a motion?
Make a motion to approve the request for additional employees from a Slice of Heaven. Vendor, addition to their vendor license.
Motion on the floor and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Motion carries.
Thank you.
Good luck. Next item on our agenda is employee payroll deductions by Chris Pate, United Way.
No, you skipped.
Oh, wait, I'm sorry. I skipped one. I apologize. Request to use city streets by Julie McGinnis and Shelley Kerman of Pedal Pub, Michiana. Requesting permission for the Pedal Pub to be allowed to operate on the streets in Michigan City. Good morning. How are you?
Good morning. I'm Shelley Kerman, 420 Outlook Cove in LaPorte.
And Julie McGinnis, 383 Sand Creek Drive in Chesterton, Indiana.
We have purchased a franchise called Pedal Pub. It is a 15-person bicycle that we would pilot, and we're for hire, but it's not like we're for hire on the street. Everything would be done ahead of schedule. They purchase the experience online through our website, and we are in contact with the city planners, working on ordinances that would make this legal on the streets, and are just wanting to get word out, and we're willing to speak to the police, chief of police to, we understand it'll have to be licensed and inspected and all of that, so we're here hoping that we can get the word out and that this will be a positive addition to things to do in Michigan City for both residents and visitors.
Thank you. I know there's been some discussion and due diligence that the city has begun to do on the feasibility of such a concept in Michigan City. I don't believe at this time the city's ready to talk in detail about that, but I think we have captured a lot of the questions that need to be answered, and certainly Michigan City Police Department and the city planner and legal will continue to answer these questions and communicate with you. but I don't think at this time the board is ready to comment on more than that on the request. We appreciate you being here, and we will be in further communication with you.
Okay.
That's great. We understand that.
Yeah, and we just wanted to make sure if anyone had any concerns or would like any pamphlets, we brought them. So, like, again, it's just a way to get things started.
Thank you.
All right.
Rich, what's the next, do they come back?
We'll put it on pending.
Do we
I mean, if
pin them?
Yeah,
I guess that's my question. They did make, do we move them
if
to the
there's
pending
if there's
items?
an ordinance required, I mean, I don't. It's. I'm hesitant to put a timeline on this because I really don't know how long it's going to take to get a handle on some of that.
I agree. Yes. Okay.
So I guess we could refer it to the appropriate city departments for their review and recommendation on what the feasibility of this concept would be in Michigan City.
Put it on the pending items
And
list.
put it on the pending.
That's what. Okay.
I'll second that motion.
Okay, we have a motion on the floor in a second. All in favor say aye. Motion carries. Thank you. Next, we have on our agenda is employee payroll deductions by Chris Pate, United Way. Good morning.
Good morning, thank you. So I'm Chris Pate, here representing United Way of LaPorte County, 422 Franklin Street here in Michigan City. I want to address Resolution 2784 made by the Board of Works on April 19th of 2004. You know, on a closer look at this resolution, I don't feel that it should apply to United Way, so I'd like to explain why. It's been used over the past few years to not allow payroll deduction for the United Way charitable campaign that happens each year. This says from time to time companies offering benefits to city employees request that payment for those services be made by payroll deduction from the paychecks of city employees. And the resolution from the Board of Works says that they direct the Controller's Office that the payroll deduction method of payment for voluntary employee benefits will not be allowed when the number of employees desiring such an arrangement is less than 50. So my first ask of the Board of Works would be to not include charitable giving to United Way in this type of a resolution. Payroll deduction is a pretty simple process, and it allows city employees to be charitable and to support organizations in Michigan City that are for the betterment of the community. And in considering that, the other thing that I'd like for you all to know is that United Way accepts donations for any 501c3 or government agency. So if you have other donors who want to give to other charities, and it becomes a concern that maybe you would have so many deductions for all these charities, all you would have to do is say all charitable deductions have to go through United Way. We would handle all the paperwork on our end, make sure that the agencies that they're donating to get their donation. Our particular United Way has made the decision that we don't take any type of administrative fees out of donations that are designated to other organizations. So if you want to give $100 to the Red Cross and you give it to United Way and say this is for the Red Cross, it'll go to the Red Cross and they'll get a check. And they'll also know who the donor was. So I guess first of all I'd say I'd like for us to decide that United Way shouldn't really be included in this particular resolution. And second of all that that we support and encourage charitable giving for employees of Michigan City.
Thank you. Ms. Pate and I did have a phone call discussion last week, which I explained we certainly appreciate the amazing work that United Way does for the community. At the same time, it's a policy decision by the city, and I would like to be given some time to research what best practices in the state and the region on allowing payroll deductions for charitable services. As the board is aware, the financial department just underwent a total financial conversion of their software, which we are looking to clean up a lot of one-offs over the decades and establish policy and best practice. So this is a great opportunity to look at what best practices for the city, reach out to other municipalities and our investment advisor, and I explained to Ms. Pate that we would do that, and we would be in communication with her on the result. So at this point, I don't know if there's a need for a motion. We could
Make a motion to table this matter and to add it to our pending items list.
Okay.
Put it on pending.
Motion to table and add to our pending list, and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you. And as we discussed, we will be researching this and be in communication with you.
All right, if there's anything I can do to help get you information, just let me know.
Thank you very much.
Sure.
Next item on our agenda is a request for solicitation of bids by Haas and Associates.
Spike.
Yep.
Spike Peller, Michigan City Engineer. This is our community crossings grant projects, two of them. Two of the roads are being developed or have been developed by Haas, and the remaining 8 have been developed by Global. They've presented the plans and specifications for each. I believe that the attorney has reviewed the the legal portion of it, and the money, roughly $2 million. Half of it will come from the state, and half of it comes from the city, and the money is available.
Thank you. And I'll just remind members of the public that this is a state grant of $1 million that the city was awarded, and for the community crossings in 2019, which is fantastic news for the city to be able to keep up on the road maintenance. With that, do I have a motion or comments?
Just to clarify, there's actually 2 separate bid packets here.
Yeah.
So one will be from Haas, and it's called the 2019 CCMG Eastport Resurfacing Project that the board will need to approve. And then the second one is from Global Engineering, and it's the 2019 Michigan City Grant Paving Project. So it's all the same funding, but it's 2 separate bid documents.
Yep. Comments from the board?
No.
Do I have a motion?
Yes, I'll make 2 motions. First motion being approval request for solicitation of bids by Haas and Associates for the Eastport Resurfacing Project, also known as the 2019 CCMG project. The second motion I will also make, and that is for Global Engineering for the 2019 Michigan City Grant Paving Project.
We have a motion on the floor and a second. All in favor say aye. Motion carries. Next item is a request for solicitation of bids by Tom Weinman, Haas and Associates for the city sidewalk repair project.
Spike Peller, Michigan City Engineer. Yes, this is kind of an annual project where we repair and fix sidewalks throughout the city.
Comments? Motion?
Make motion to approve the request for solicitation of bids from Tom Wyman, Haas and Associates for the 2019 citywide sidewalk repair project.
Motion on the floor and a second. All in favor say aye. Motion carries. We request for solicitation of bids again by Tom Weinman, Haas and Associates for the citywide pavement program.
Spike Peller, Michigan City Engineer. Again, this is kind of an annual project. Basically what we do is when we've got a long stretch of potholes and stuff like that, maybe 100 feet, maybe 200 feet or something like that, we come in and mill and resurface and repave the street.
Thank you. Comments by the board?
No.
Motion?
Make a motion to approve the request for the solicitation of bids for the 2019 citywide pavement repair project from Haas & Associates.
Motion on the floor and a second. All in favor say aye. Aye. Motion carries.
Thank you.
Next item is a contract proposal. Fire Chief Randy Novak requesting the acceptance of contract from Wayne Heating and Air for preventative maintenance for the department's heating and air conditioning.
Morning, Randy Novak, Fire Chief. This is the same contract that the board approved last year, so it's just a renewal of our current contract for maintenance on our 6th building.
Thank you. Comments by the board?
None.
Do I have a motion?
Make a motion to approve the request for the contract proposal from Wayne Heating and Air for the preventive maintenance on the Michigan City Fire Department heating and air conditioning units.
A motion on the floor and a second. All in favor say aye. Aye. Motion carries. Next item is Michigan City Farmers Market Agreement. Abigail Thayer requesting approval of Farmers Market Agreement for Virginia Lowry, Go Bees Honey Farm.
Ms. Thayer isn't here, but I have reviewed all the documents, and the agreement and the insurance are acceptable for the board to approve.
Thank you. Comments by the board?
None.
Motion?
I'll make a motion to approve the request for the farmers market agreement from Abigail Thayer for Virginia Lowry, Go Bees Honey Farm.
Motion on the floor and a second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. Next item is approval of city policy changes. Andrea Smith, Director of Human Resources, requesting approval. Revisions to tobacco use policy and addition of whistleblower protection policy to employee handbook.
So, as some of you may know, the council right now is currently considering a no smoking ordinance in our parks. When we pulled up our manual, we discovered that some time ago the Board of Works approved no smoking in any city vehicles. However, it looks like it never got into our manual. So this was back in 2014, before I took over this position and before our current personnel director took over this position. So we're just looking to correct this because it's been the policy has been a motion that's been accepted by the board, but it's never been into our policy. So we're asking for the approval of policy number 505 regarding tobacco use. As to policy number 515 regarding whistleblower protection, again, as some of you may know, our Common Council passed a whistleblower ordinance earlier this year, and that ordinance required the Board of Work to put this in our policy. We are following through with the requirements of that ordinance to then put this into our policy.
Thank you. Comments?
None.
Do I have a motion?
Make a motion to approve the request for city policy changes, that being the revision policy of 505 tobacco use to correct the and to include that there's no smoking in vehicles. The second is to policy 515 whistleblower protection, to add that to that policy.
I will second the motion. All in favor say aye. Motion carries. Next item on our agenda is a cease and desist order to Councilman Sean Fitzpatrick requesting the review of the order against Calumet Pallet located at 4333 Ohio Street. Morning,
Good morning.
Councilman.
Sean Fitzpatrick, 4th Ward Councilman, 230 Walnut Street. I have Mr. Bridegroom and his counsel also. I reached out to Mr. Bridegroom to get an update on what the status was with his property and his business. And upon meeting with him, I discovered that a lot of his life safety violations had been addressed and were in compliance, and he was still unable to operate because of the cease and desist order, as well as the utilities being removed from his property. It's almost impossible for him to comply with the rest of the violations and get them up to code without being able to staff the property and have workers in there to perform these tasks. With the utilities being pulled, also the fire alarm and the sprinkler system is inoperable as well. So those issues need to be addressed, I think, just for a public safety issue, as well as getting the business back where it can operate. This was a business that I was employing upwards of 30 people and getting ready to move to an additional shift to have some more workers up. The major issue that I think everyone is up in arms about is the unsightliness. And I myself have walked the property, and it is unsightly on the exterior. The interior is a completely different situation where the workers will mostly be affected by any potential safety hazards. In the process of all this taking place, since the order was put in place, Mr. Bridegroom and his company has made numerous steps to begin the process of clearing the yard. I don't know how many truckloads have been removed from the property, but I sent you guys some of the invoices to review as a kind of a gauge to see the progress that's been made, but there's still no progress as to when the board will allow the utilities to be returned and operation to resume. So I don't know if they had anything they wanted to add to that, but I did. On the 23rd, I was actually on the property with Fire Marshal Schaefer and former Marshal Kazmierczyk and Captain Lineski. I'm sorry, Captain Urbanzik of Michigan City Police Department was out there as well, in addition to someone from the news media. And when I first heard of this situation going on, I wanted to get a little more insight on it, so I requested information to review myself, and initially I didn't get a response, and then once I got a response, I still haven't had access myself, so that's why I went a little further into talking with Mr. Bridegroom to get his side, because I didn't get a full understanding of where the city was as far as what's been going on with it. So,
good morning. I am Jeff Bridegroom. I'm the owner of Calumet Pallet. As you all know, I've been under a cease and desist order that was issued by Kyle Kazmierczyk back on February 12, 2018. During that time, on March 13th, I sent an email to Kyle telling him all the things that Calumet Pallet has completed, provided all the documentation, including Kyle's signature where he signed off on these items. On March 19th, Kyle sent me a letter saying that I was allowed to have occupancy in my building, that I needed to get certain things done still, which was my yard. I have 5 times sent to Kyle Kazmierczyk, into the fire department, into the city attorney, through my attorneys and through myself, proposal to clean up my yard. 5 times they have not requested, they have not seen they have not even responded in any way, shape, or form. They've been to my facility 3 or 4 times now and seen the inside of my facility is compliant. Okay? The only way for Calumet Pallet to complete the compliance order that they have is for me to be operational in my building. I need to be able to generate money so I can get my grinder fixed, so I can grind the wood that's in my yard. Yes, it is unsightly, and I will admit that here right now. But in order, we have to have a compromise. If there's no compromise, nothing's going to get accomplished. I'm here asking the board to reinstate my electric so that I can put people to work in the city, so that I can get my electric turned back on, so I can generate money, so I can get my grinder fixed, so I can get compliant. It's going to be a long process. In addition, besides that, I also provided to them a letter from the Westville Correction Facility that said they will take every stick of wood in my yard. In order for me to do that, I must have another driver. I'm willing to also give them wood. But unless they compromise and allow the electric to be on in my building and be operational, I can't do that either. It takes money to make money. So unless the board decides to let me have electric and let me have people in my building, I can't accomplish what they're asking me to do. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Christopher Willoughby, Brady Nelson, and James here as counsel to Calumet Pallet. I want to make sure that we're clear from our position, and certainly appreciate Councilman's involvement. but I have had fruitful discussions with the city's attorney. So certainly not here to throw anyone under the proverbial bus here, but when I was asked to attend with our city council member as well as my client today, I just want to make sure that we are moving forward. Ms. LePage and I, we do have communications. They haven't always been the result either of us want in terms of maybe necessarily the responses or the requests that we have, but part of that is because we have so many moving parts here. At least that's my opinion. Last I knew, there was an inspection mid to late April, as Mr. Fitzpatrick alluded to. My recollection is that we're waiting on a supplemental report from the now acting fire marshal. The frustration, I think, here is that we were making some progress under the previous fire marshal. There have been proposals out there. I believe the materials have all been provided to you. They've been provided to Ms. LePage, most of which she already had. And so, again, it's not here to be antagonistic because I don't think that's going to get to the resolution here. There's a long history with this property. I do know that my client, notwithstanding perhaps the previous dealings between the city and him, and certainly they have not been conducive to reaching a resolution. This is one where there has to be compromise, or that property is going to continue to sit in that condition. And while I know the city can step in and clean that up, I don't think anybody wants to do that. And so we do ask, and I want to reiterate that I know my firm is here to try to help facilitate a resolution. I think that we're pretty close, and in combing over some of the previous reports and responses from Mr. Kazmierzak, the client is there. Everything except for some of the outside. Ms. LePage and I did have some discussions, and we do have some proposals of how can we get this off center. From my perspective, I understand, and again, so many decision makers. I see Ms. Downs here from the inspection department. She certainly has been responsive to me. But again, it's not just one person making the decision here, and I don't know that there's an easy resolution, but my client does need to operate. And in return, we know the city needs some assurances that these things are going to get done because there's a history here and some things have been done. So I can assure you that my firm, again, as I said, is here to help facilitate a resolution to this that I think works for everybody. And an interesting note is that prior to the shutdown, my client employed 38 people, and it was contemplating a second shift that would have put 54 jobs in play. And right now, it's non-operational. I do believe that there's a concern that was expressed to me by Attorney LePage that perhaps reports to her that worries that maybe business being conducted on site. My client assures that it has been removal. Sometimes it's tough to prove a negative here, and once again, we're certainly willing to help out in terms of supplying additional information, but we certainly respectfully request that we somehow get this thing off center and get this facility back operational. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good morning.
Good morning.
I'm Rob Schaefer, the current fire marshal in Michigan City. I had taken over for the previous fire marshal, Kyle Kazmierzak, in January. He's still been involved in this process because obviously he was the one that issued the initial cease and desist order, along with the removal of the utilities. I don't have to tell you that there's been a long history. I've had to go through all of that paperwork over the last few months and get myself up to speed. As of the 23rd, I was out on the property. I was requested to do a inspection and present my findings. I don't know if you have had the opportunity to get a copy of this, but I did bring copies for everybody.
Mr. Schaefer, do you have extra copies for them?
Pardon me?
Do you have extra copies for Mr. Bridegroom?
I think there's...
Sure. Give me one background.
If you'd like, I could read it for you. It's fairly lengthy. It's very specific as to the codes that are still not being adhered to. So there are still at least 3 life safety violations that still exist out at Calumet
Maybe you
Valley.
could just summarize the letter, not read it verbatim.
Okay. The summary of it would be that as to what I could observe inside the building, obviously it's a vast building. And there is no power there. So I wasn't able to see every nook and cranny of everything in there because I'm walking through the flashlight. But from what I could observe, they have done all of the cleanup that was necessary inside the building to be in compliance as far as stacking the pallets and that type of thing. Obviously, I can't observe the sprinkler system being properly working, nor can I observe the fire alarm properly working. And but I will concede that as to the things I can observe, the inside of the building is in compliance. Now, once the power comes on, I can't assure you that, or if the power were to come on, I can't assure you that that will be the case. Because the fire alarm system would have to be tested again, the sprinkler system will have to be tested again, the hydrants will have to be tested again. As a matter of fact, the hydrants are not in compliance currently, which is one of the 3 things that they're still in violation of. And it's for 2 reasons. One is that they are supposed to do a twice annual flush and testing of the hydrants. And there is supposed to be someone from the water department present when that happens. My understanding from the former fire marshal, they did have some paperwork that showed that they did this back in March of last year. So, as you can see, that if that was done in March of last year, we should have at least 1 report in between then and now. And we do not have that. And my understanding is that when they did the initial flush and test, there was no one from the water department there to actually witness it. The other part of the hydrants that is not in compliance is they have 2 that border what he's calling a fire access road. And they have some concrete barriers up, however, they're not in compliance. It's very specific, and he has it in his own paperwork that they're supposed to be posts that are in the ground. I have a couple of pictures so you can actually see what it looks like. Pass those. Those are concrete barriers. However, they're not fastened to the ground or anchored to the ground in any way. I could go into great detail, but it is in my findings. I put the specific code and what is specifically required for impact barriers for hydrants, and what he has is not sufficient. The other finding that I have that is not in compliance and is a huge life safety issue is that the one what he calls fire access road, the one road that goes around the building, is not an all-weather road. And by code, it is required that you are supposed to be able to drive on that at all times of the year, including when there's snow and when it gets plowed. Furthermore, that is not the only fire access road that he's required to have. In the pilings that he has out there, he is supposed to have roads in and through there and separations in the pilings, and he has none. The third item that he's not in compliance with is actually the size of the pilings that he has out there. And they are far in excess of first of all, they're supposed to be on solid ground or other all-weather surface, and the pile is far in excess of 150 feet wide by 250 feet in length. So that's what currently stands at Calumet Pallet. What I can tell you, you guys know there was a long history here. There was a big effort to get Mr. Bridegroom to come into compliance. After the initial cease and desist order, he did start to work on some of the things inside the building. He made reference to former Fire Marshal Kazmierzak signing off on some agreements. I have not been provided with any documentation showing that former Fire Marshal ever signed off on anything. That being said, it also states in the original cease and desist order that all life safety issues must be completed before the cease and desist order would be lifted. So, past that, I don't know what your decision would be.
Thank you.
Do you have any questions?
So basically, your recommendation?
Yes. My recommendation would be that since I'm the current fire marshal and I was given this cease and desist order and it has to be completely complied with, it is not completely complied with, so I would not lift the cease and desist order and reinstate his power.
Did you want to speak?
So, Mr. President, if I just may chime in for a minute here. As you know, last year this board held an appeal hearing where Mr. Bridegroom came in and wanted to be heard before the NIPSCO's utilities were going to be shut down. He was heard. The board at that time affirmed the notice and order at that time. If Mr. Bridegroom disagreed with it, he could have always went to a court of law to appeal it. Now, as we sit here today, I think what is being asked of this board is to do a reconsideration hearing of that. And if this board is going to do that, then I think in all fairness, there should be a notice of hearing. People should be prepared. But that's what I think needs to come in front of this board today is, do you open it back up for a rehearing or do you not?
Comments by the board?
No, I'm prepared to make a motion.
What is your motion?
You may have public comments.
We could entertain a public comment on this issue.
Hello, good morning. My name is Beth Pishker. I've been a resident of the 4th Ward for over 35 years. I live within a half a mile of the pallet company, and I'm glad to finally see who Mr. Bridegroom is today, because shame on you, Mr. Bridegroom, as far as the health and safety of the people that live across the street, when you drive south on Ohio Street, you might not notice it, but if anybody comes up on one of the side streets and you do look directly across it, and it's not even the aesthetic look of it, it has to be a health hazard. I myself, I know I'm short and tiny, I could get under the fence that's bolted shut. And across the street from your company is a neighborhood full of children. And what do children do when summer comes? They would probably love to get in there and explore. They'd probably be chased out pretty quickly. I'd like to think that's what would happen. But it's very unsafe. And what if it ever did catch on fire? What if the kids do decide to fool around? It's very, very unsafe. And the unsightly part isn't what gets me as much as the safety and the health of the neighborhood. If it would ever catch on fire, it would rival the Pullman building that burned down back in the late 70s. Thank you, that's all.
Thank you. Anyone else for public comment on this issue? Yes.
My name is Karen Bridegroom. I'm the wife of Jeff Bridegroom, the owner of Calumet Pallet. Jeff's been in business for over 30 years. He moved from Hammond to Michigan City, purchased the building, is the sole owner and proprietor of this building. We do recognize the issue that's on Ohio Street. Jeff and I are both community servants. I work in this community. I respect this community. We're ashamed of the way the building looks. When they came in and they found the hazards, Jeff quickly and as quickly as he could tried to amend those problems. For 14 months, we've tried to work with the city to come to a compromise. Our goal is to get people employed in the building, get the building open so we can afford to get the yard cleaned up. It's going to be impossible if there is no compromise. The building, we could be having this conversation a year from now, and we don't want to do that. Our goal is to clean up the yard, employ Michigan City residents, and get back his reputation that has been destroyed over this. That's our goal, is to work with Michigan City and clean up the yard and employ some residents. Jeff pays really good money when he is open, and that's our hope, that the city will please come to a compromise with us. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good morning. How are you? Training Officer Kyle Kazmierzak. Obviously, my name has been thrown around here a little bit this morning, so having been the first person to deal with this, I just want to reiterate something here. These outstanding violations have been since 2015. We have been working since 2015 with the individual to get to some type of compliancy. However, to no avail. So I don't see where opening this back up is going to change any of the violations that currently exist. We need to, this is the problem that we've had from day one. The order has been given, it was specific into which needed to be done, and it's stated in there that it would not be returned back to normal duties or normal operation until all violations have been corrected. That's where it stands, and that's where I think it should continue to go. Thank you.
I'd like to say something again, as the owner of Calumet Pallet. I tried, this right here demonstrates between 500 and 600 loads of material, whether it be pallets, wood, that have been removed from Calumet Pallet. To say Calumet Pallet has not done nothing, has not tried to do anything, is a lie by whoever's saying it, okay? In regards to what Mr. Kazmierzak said about 2014, Calumet Pallet moved in our building in 2014. We had a fire inspection. We received no written citations from anybody. 2015, no written citations from anybody. 2016, no written citations from anybody. 2017, I had a written citation for not having a Knox box. I had the Knox box installed, okay? So to say Calumet Pallet has not done nothing, they're not trying to compromise and get something done, is false accusation, okay? The reason why my yard is in the situation it is when we moved from Hammond to Michigan City, I had to clean up my yard in Hammond. During that process, my grinder was destroyed to a tune of $100,000 repair bill. To this date, it is still not repaired. In order to get that grinder repaired, I must be operational. If I'm not operational, I can't get that grinder repaired. Like my wife said, that wood will sit in the yard. Okay? We have to compromise here and come to a resolution in order to make this compliant for everybody. Yes, again, I will say it is unsightly. But we must compromise and come to a resolution. Thank you.
Thank you.
I would like to address the board on a couple of things that were said. First of all, the cease and desist order did say that it had to be completed before things would be reinstated. That being said, if we rescind the cease and desist order or give them their power back, to me, that is the same as us saying that it's safe out there. And it's not safe out there. They want to say it's unsightly. It's a lot more than just unsightly. If that catches fire and we have to go out there and we have to fight a fire there, there's no way to gain any access to any of those pilings. And that has not been addressed whatsoever. He talked about hauling some loads down to Westville Correctional. I actually have a letter that I got from Westville Correctional where he took 3 loads down there, and I can't remember his name right now, but the person that he was working through Westville Correctional with that was very disappointed because he thought he was going to be getting loads on a regular basis. He got 3 loads in March and that was it. He was never brought any more. As for all of the loads of pallets that he's taken out of there, it has not come from the outside yard. So I would be wondering where 500 loads of lumber is coming from if the only permission he had was to clean the inside of the warehouse or the inside of the facility. I mean, common sense says there's not 500 loads of pallets inside that building unless you're bringing them from somewhere else, put them in there, and take them out.
Comments by the board? Do I have a motion?
Yes, you do. I make a motion to deny the reopening of this hearing. I think it would be a dereliction of our duty to do otherwise.
We have a motion on the floor. Just a comment from me. I appreciate everyone's testimony this morning on this issue. I know it's a difficult situation. We as a board have a cease and desist order in front of us where there are 3 life safety issues that have not been met. The charge of this board is to uphold the safety of the public. Public safety is paramount. We have an emphatic testimony by the Michigan City Police Department that it is not safe and it is a public safety hazard. We've heard that repeatedly. So on that basis, I will second the motion. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. Thank you. Our next item on the agenda is a formal public hearing on the sale of Fogarty Street, property parcel 4601 2136 1005 00022.
Mr. President, we've tried to sell this parcel of land a few times in the past. It's been unsuccessful. We've received no bids. Earlier this year, we had a gentleman come before this board asking us to republish and consider rebidding this out. So based on that request, and because we have formally on 2 other occasions put this out for bid, what I have prepared is the formal public hearing notice and also the notice of solicitation of bids. The statute requires us to have a public hearing on this here today to see if the public has any objections or if they are in agreement with the sale of this property. So what I think it would be wise is to open it up for public comment if there are any, to see what the public's interest they may have, if any, in this.
We'll open it up for public comment on the sale of Fogarty Street property.
Good morning.
Good morning, how are you?
Doing well. I am Mary Rapier. I live at 220 Fogarty Street, right across the street from the property.
I'm Ellie Hartman. We're both representing a neighborhood group. And if I can, I'd like to pass around the neighborhood around this property. If I can, I'd like to pass out some maps.
Please.
I'm so
That's
sorry.
okay, if you don't have enough, I can give one. All right.
So the map in your hand is an idea of what some of the neighborhood looks like. The lake is at the top. Washington Park and Zoo is off to the left. The property in question is in the blue square in the middle of the page. All the property on the bottom of the page and most of it on the right and bottom of the page is industrial property. One of our major concerns is the traffic in the area. There's a great deal of traffic that goes through the area as Center Street is the only way to get in and out to Route 12. There are very few sidewalks in the area, contiguous sidewalks in the area. Traffic is very heavy, and as an organization, we've been very concerned about the traffic. There have been occasions on Fogarty Street where a fire vehicle or an ambulance would not be able to get through because there are so many cars parked on both sides of the street. I sent an email to our traffic officer back in April about this, which he said he would investigate. The problem becomes exacerbated during the summertime. We're also concerned about the density of what's being built in the area. We understand that property labeled B on this map is recently been purchased, and our understanding is that they're looking to put 10 units there. And we don't know anything about parking and where that additional traffic is going to be moving in and out of the area. There's another area with a question mark on it that's open to be developed, and then 3 check marks are areas that are in the process of being developed. So you can see our neighborhood is going through some rapid changes. We're curious about how this is going to affect the water table and the sewer system as well. Mary.
Thank you, Ellie. One of the things that greatly concerns me in particular is that the concerns about the traffic and the public safety have been brought to many different entities throughout Michigan City for as long as I've been living there, which we moved in May of 2009. We have a large body of people who have chosen to buy into Michigan City, moving from other places, and make Michigan City their home. They've made that neighborhood their home community, a place where they choose to retire and stay for many years to come. The flavor and style of our community, which is predominantly single-family homes, warrants that we take some time to, number one, to really discover what is the goal and the outcome of those people buying and purchasing the property. We are concerned that there was rapid zone changes on Lake Street, which does in fact impact us directly, and we were not properly notified. So my concern is, in a rush to put this back on the market suddenly, is number one, we need time to clearly understand what is the goal and direction of those who are choosing to develop our community. My concern is, and it goes beyond it, if it's being purchased for rental community or for rental units and multifamily units, then we really need to have a conversation about that, because it does exacerbate the traffic and the public safety issues that we've already seen. So again, until we have a greater understanding of the impact of the population growth, we're looking at the potential of 30 additional homes in a small area right now, if everything were to sell and be built. If there be single-family homes, that's one thing. Multiple family housing with also a growth. All the property on Blaine is for sale as well. So we need to, I would like to see us take a step back, identify, do we want to become a rental community predominantly? Do we want to become a multiple family housing? Do we want to have zoning in place which ensures that the neighborhood that we all bought into and the community that we bought into remains somewhat intact before we have a greater understanding of it? So I am requesting on behalf of my neighbors that this be tabled for a future consideration. Thank you.
Comments by the board?
I think that we need to recognize the impact this will have on the community and act accordingly.
I guess with a request like this, there's two parts of this. One is that we have land that's for sale, and secondly, I presume that this existing zoning is single family right now. There has not been a zoning discussion, to my knowledge, that has taken place. Is that correct?
No, it has.
Okay.
Let me see. The landmark B.
Can you come up to the mic, please?
The area marked B on that map was recently, an ordinance was issued without the neighborhood's knowledge to be 5 duplexes.
It was changed from RA1 to RD1. We also know that it wasn't? Okay. It's been changed. I know we received through our councilman that the zoning had been changed. The zoning was approved in February, at a meeting in February. We also know that the property that's directly behind it were single-family homes, and at some time the zoning had to have been changed because there are now 2 very large duplexes there. And, you know, that's a whole nother concern we can get into, but so there has been significant changes into what our community is. And my fear is that without fully understanding by every member of all the entities involved who make these decisions, without a clear understanding of what is the purpose, how is it going to be dealt, how is it going to be developed. I was talking to a neighbor who lives right next to that property. The way that the hill is, if the hill were to be dismantled and all the massive trees, it's one of the few wooded areas still remaining on the north end of Michigan City, which is not populated. If you begin to change that, then we need to know that there's not going to be significant flooding. She's already having problems with her sewage. Unfortunately, she can't be here today. And the neighbor directly next to her. When you remove that hill, the way that the whole neighborhood is designed, what are we looking at? So I just want to, knowing that it has gone on the market before and there have been no bids, and we've all talked as a neighborhood, maybe we should just all buy it. And that way we can protect the animal life and everything else that's there. And also protect, because it's a wonderful buffer from the industrial complex that's behind it. But more importantly, I think that because we are even having a discussion about what is zoned, what is not zoned, what is approved, what is not approved, the transitions and the protection that the Sheridan Beach community is going through and how it extends to us, are we backing ourselves into a place that we cannot walk away from? Should the neighborhood and the designs in the neighborhood, the new designs, further impede the people that are currently living there and really alter the potential that is housed in our entire community along the Trail Creek?
I would just like to briefly add the 2 duplexes that were recently built in the area have never been completely rented. Right now, of the 4 units, 2 are open.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
I think we need to do that. Okay. I'll make a motion to table this matter, put it on our pending items list
I'll support. All in favor say aye. Motion carries. Next item is the request for solicitation of bids for the sale of Fogarty Street parcel.
I'm assuming that that was tabled with your last motion.
All right. Next item is an order to demolish 111 Franklin Street, Adams Property Holdings.
Sue Downs, City of Michigan City, Building Commissioner. The individuals in charge of that development, they've submitted plans, they've pulled a building permit. We've looked at their drawings. BFLP, Mark Baludos has been very cooperative, and they're working toward the goal of actually restoring that building. So we would like for it to be tabled or just left for maybe 60 days.
So you're asking for a continuance for 60 days? So it would be the first meeting in July of this board?
And as long as they continue to make progress on the building, then hopefully we can avoid the demolition, but we want to keep that as an option.
Are the owners here?
Representing them.
Do you have a motion?
I'll make a motion to table the matter of to continue the matter of 111 Franklin Street, Adams Holding property, the order to demolish for 60 days.
Support. All in favor say aye. Motion carries.
Let me just clarify that because I don't know if it works out right to be the 60-day mark. It would be your first meeting in July, so if anybody has, yeah, I'm not sure, but it ends up being exactly on 60 days. So if we have a calendar.
Also, Sue, can you give us the information of where they live in that so we can give them a letter of what happened today? Sure. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next item on our agenda is order to demolish 816 Pine Street.
Thank you.
Okay, this is an older home, basically been abandoned by the owners. The owners are there in their mid to late 80s, and they've basically walked away from it. It's currently got almost $28,000 in back taxes. Still has a pending mortgage that they admitted themselves they've not met. The mortgage was like $35,000 with fines and interest and things like that added to it as well. They said they haven't made a payment on the mortgage in years. There is an IRS tax lien on the property for $218,000. So it's not likely that anyone is going to take an interest in the property. The property itself is, you'll see from the pictures, what they've done is the foundation is crumbling, the electric system is derelict, the plumbing is also non-functional. There is no functional heating in there. What they've done over the years is they've cut structural members, so the entire foundation is shifting. To repair it would cost just an exorbitant amount of money. The house is sitting in Elston Grove, so it's in a historic district. But I have gone before the Historic Review Board to get their support on the demolition, and they did issue me a permit. They have agreed to allow for the demolition. It was very difficult for them because obviously they don't like to see anything come down, but they also acknowledge the fact that the likelihood of this ever being restored is basically non-existent. We were originally notified about it by a tenant who had been living in there for a long term, I think probably close to 10 years. And there was no work done. The roof was leaking, so the inside was open to the elements. The owner has removed a lot of the windows from it now too. So since that time, it's been sitting there with open windows. So it's beyond any hope of restoring it.
Ms. Downs, you have the deeded owner as GW and Virginia Plunk, is that correct?
Correct.
Excuse me, are there any other owners? How were the owners served with notice of today's hearing?
They were given verbal and first-class mail, and also with a certified mailing as well.
Did the certified mail come back?
He's received 2 notices because I revised it to add the IRS. So the first one he did receive and signed for it, yes.
So you have the green card back?
Yes, I do.
And then did you also publish in the News Dispatch?
Yes.
And that publication has already occurred?
Yes.
And do you have an affidavit of your proof of service?
I can get that from
I have
Dale's
it.
got one.
Thank you.
Could we open it up to public comment to see if the owners or any other party is here to comment on this issue? Public comment.
Ms. Downs, do you have the actual order to demo?
Here, you can have mine. Here.
If no one's here for public comment, I'll have comments from the board.
None.
Do I hear a motion?
Guess I'll make a motion to affirm the order to demolish 816 Main Street.
Motion on the floor and a second. All in favor say aye. Motion carries. Thank you.
Ms. Downs, can you please bring a copy of that order to my office after the meeting? It's not in my packet you gave me.
Next item on our agenda is opening of bids for 609 Benton Street. Is there anyone here this morning that is willing to render a bid? Anyone here this morning willing to render a bid? If not, do I have a motion to close the bid?
Move to close the bids.
Motion to close the bids, support. All in favor say aye. Bids are closed.
Mr. President, I've received 4 bids. The first is from Pavey Excavating Company, Inc. It's in the amount of $7,980.50. The second is from Acting Contracting LLC. It's in the amount of $10,395. The third is from JSG, J. Schaffner General Contractor, Inc. It's in the amount of $9,850. $9,850. The fourth is from Smith and Sons. It's in the amount of $7,500. And that's it.
Thank you. Do I have a motion to refer the bids to the appropriate city departments.
So moved.
I have a motion on the floor to refer the bids for 609 Benton Street to the appropriate city departments for the review and recommendation. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. Next item on our agenda is a resignation. Michigan City Fire Department announces the resignation of Kevin Hudson effective April 30th, 2019 for informational purposes only. Next item on the agenda is claims and payroll.
Make a motion to approve the claims and payroll as presented.
Motion to approve the claims and payroll and a second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. Then on to our pending items. We have a first pending item is a speed assessment on Village Road and Crestwood Drive. Good morning. Again.
As you're aware, when this was first brought to the board about a month ago, I placed our radar trailer out there. That, along with the increased traffic enforcement, appears to have had the intended consequences of reducing the speed of the motorists. Therefore, we would recommend denying the request to reduce the speed limit. However, when I was out there, I noticed the Southgate neighborhood has a pretty distinct perimeter. It's bordered by Ohio Street, Kiefer, and Franklin Streets. When you're entering that neighborhood from any of these major routes, there are no speed limit signs alerting the motorists what the speed limit is in that neighborhood. So I came up with a list of locations where I would like to add 30-mile-an-hour speed limit signs, specifically Village in Franklin, Village in Ohio, Southwind in Ohio, South Court in Ohio, and Southwind in Kiefer. And that would be a recommendation.
Thank you. Comments from the board? Do I have a motion?
Yes, I'll make a motion to deny the request for the change in speed limit at the area of Village Road and Crestwood Drive and Southgate neighborhood, and also to install the suggested 30 mile per hour speed limit signs at the areas that we've been asked to do that.
Motion on the floor to deny the request, but to approve the recommendation by Michigan City Public Police Department to install signage. Motion and a second. All in favor? Say aye. Motion carries. Next item is Sean Fitzpatrick request for streetlights on Paz Road for pedestrian safety.
Spike Color, Michigan City Engineer. We're still working on this. Half the road in some areas is owned by the county, and we are in negotiations with the county to put up these street lights. And I think what will happen is we'll put them up and we'll pay for them, as long as that's acceptable to the city.
You mean we'll put them up on county property and pay for them?
Well, there is standard practice for either the north or south of county, city property to be maintained by either the county or the city. Whatever we determine is that convention, the county will own, because they own on the south side and they own on the north side, and whatever happens, I don't know, they're on existing poles, and we're still in negotiation with the county.
So why don't you leave it like that right now?
Yeah. Well, yeah,
You're still under, and rather than surmise about who's paying what or who's gonna.
Yeah, right, okay, that's fine. We're still working on it.
We're going to leave it on the pending list, but I think we would, as a board, want to detail the plan of what's the implementation would be and the costs and who pays. So,
okay, sounds good.
All right, thank you.
Yeah, 30 days is enough.
All right. Okay, our next, I think that exhausts the pending items. Our next agenda item is public comment. Is there anyone here from the public wishes to make a comment?
Name is Jim Tomczak. I was on the agenda earlier,
Oh,
but you went, bro, I didn't get a chance to get up.
Okay.
It's just not on Pine Street, these signs. This is through the whole neighborhood there since they've changed that. I'm down there 2 mornings a week doing maintenance down there for them. And at 9th and Pine, northbound, they come off 11th Street and there's no stop sign at 10th Street, and then people are wound up. They see that stoplight at 8th Street, and I saw somebody the other day go through there. The guy was on his phone, wasn't paying any attention. So I'm trying to get something slowed down there since they did change that all to 2-way streets and they didn't put any, or 2-way traffic. They didn't put any. Mr. Peller put up a green sign with 2 people on it that says ahead. I had to go ask people what that meant. I didn't know that meant school. But the word school, 50 mile an hour, they're all over the schools, all over the rest of the schools in Michigan City. When I come in this morning, I come up Woodland Ave and I counted 4 of them on Woodland Ave coming up. So that's what we're trying to do. And the other thing is, can you speak up? And I'm sitting right here and I can't hear you. You know, I know.
It's not working.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, I appreciate your comments. Anyone else from the public here like to make a public comment? Anyone else from the public? Anyone else from the public? If not, public comment is closed. Board comment? Do I have a motion to adjourn?
Move to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn in a second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Motion carries.